The Medium is developer Bloober's latest attempt at crafting a horror game that relies on atmospheric tones and build-ups. In comparison to their previous games such as Blair Witch and Layers of Fear, it ditches the jump scares for a general uneasiness that's more approachable for players. In that sense, this is arguably their most authentic feeling horror game, and in many ways, feels like a modernized attempt at recreating horror games from the PS1 era, titles like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. While the execution is admirable, it also demonstrates why some of these design choices were better left in the past. The opening moments of The Medium paint a vivid picture of what's to come, and it's all death. After all, the game is called The Medium, and from the start of the story, our protagonist Marianne is an undertaker. We find her burying perhaps one of the few people who have been close to her, setting the mood for the rest of the story. After the story's introduction, Marianne finds herself at an abandoned resort, with an aura of general uneasiness. Interested in finding out what happened here, Marianne begins to explore, feeling her powers as a medium heightened by whatever happened here. Eager to learn more about it, including the origins of her powers, she begins her expedition. As the main character, I was very indifferent on Marianne. I enjoyed the conversation she'd have with herself, quickly giving me insight on her feelings and more about her character. The often self-deprecating dialogue was insightful, though it did later on feel a bit one-dimensional. Her character aside, I was invested in the growing mystery behind the resort, and that only increased during my investigation across the 8-hour campaign. In the early marketing of The Medium, its main selling point outside of being a horror game was the fact that it showed 2 points of view at the same time. I found it a bit strange, almost like the gameplay was touting that this could only be done with the power of next-generation hardware, despite plenty of split-screen co-op games and A Way Out existing already. Nevertheless, the split-screen view is a fascinating point for this game, though not as well used as I'd hope. As a medium, Marianne is able to exist both in our reality and the spiritual one. For about 60% of the game, you'll solely be in the human world, investigating your surroundings and coming across puzzles. Usually these consisted of being blocked by an obstacle like a lock or the power going out. Through some critical thinking and some investigating, I was able to solve most of these puzzles pretty quickly. They certainly weren't as challenging as this developer's previous games. If anything, they just required the patience of wandering around the environment looking for clues or key items to further progress. The remaining 40% of the game has you balancing out the spirit world and the human world. In these moments, you control Marianne in both of these worlds, and though they're parallels of themselves, they look and act very differently. While in the human world, Marianne is constrained by the physical barriers like the power going out or a desk in the way. In the spirit world, she's able to do a lot more. Using her out-of-body experience power, for a few moments, she can move beyond her physical self to collect energy and power up electronics. With her insight, important key items and elements are highlighted, letting you clear up obstacles in the physical world through the spiritual. While the idea was neat at first, I quickly felt like it overstayed its welcome, or rather its shallow gameplay design started to show. To be fair, there were moments that pushed me to quickly phase in and out of both worlds in a fast-paced scene, and those were easily my favorite scenes. However, those moments were far and few between. You also might have noticed that all of these games feature fixed camera angles, and while it feels reminiscent of retro horror PS1 games, they haven't aged well at all. So many times while controlling Marianne, I found myself walking backward or into an object just trying to figure out which direction I was going because of the new transition. It was quite annoying and often brought me out of the otherwise cinematic experience. I get that the fixed camera view makes sense for the double point of view, it makes a lot less sense when the rest of the game is shown through only one point of view. The Medium follows the trend that most modern horror games follow, having photorealistic visuals that blend reality with video game. It looks gorgeous, especially with some of these fixed camera angles. It at times feels like I'm watching some new A24 indie horror film only to have the immersion break when the tank controls start to fight themselves and I start walking into a wall. I also think I would have appreciated the visuals a bit more if they weren't so soft. The spirit world is this warped reality where doors are locked behind skin gates only to be opened by a bone knife. It's creepy and grotesque, but they perfectly set the mood for this game and it would have been better without the softness. It's hard to explain, but there's this general soft blur over the entire game that may just be a design choice, but in practice, it softens up what's an otherwise very beautiful picture. That's only further hurt by when the point of view doubles and further softens the resolution of the gameplay. Playing on my Xbox Series X, I was able to get 4K 30 frames per second performance that for the most part stayed at a solid frame rate. On Xbox Series S, that performance carries over to 1080p 30 frames per second. Both consoles perform well, but the issue I kept running into was texture loading in after they should have. During certain cutscenes, I'd see moments where environments failed to load textures instantly, making some scenes feel like a weird jump cut. I also noticed effects when there shouldn't have been some. Take this moment for example. Marianne is walking on some concrete, and when I step into a puddle, there's a water ripple effect on her shoe. That's fine. But when it also happens when she steps on the concrete around the puddle, despite there not being any water to ripple, Little catches like these broke the cinematic immersion for me, and it generally felt like a strange issue to have when one of the biggest features of these new consoles are the SSD technology with faster loading times. The medium is smart about how it chooses to use audio. Music is low volume, almost non-existent. Instead, you hear atmospheric tones that create this feeling of uneasiness while exploring. You might hear the ambient noise of the environment around you as you walk around, maybe a scream in the distance alerting you that there's something to investigate. Overall, the audio successfully creates this eerie ambience that sent shivers down my spine as I loomed over every corner, expecting something to jump and scare me. The medium is going to be one of the most polarizing games from the studio. For one, I think it does some interesting things, taking a slower approach to gameplay than their previous titles, focusing on creating a horror setting rather than relying on traditional jump scares. The medium isn't scary, it's more creepy and mysterious. I enjoyed that, but I didn't enjoy the gameplay execution as much. While I was invested in the story and seeing out what happened in this resort, I found myself annoyed by little design choices, whether it was the PS1 era tank controls that would show their age with conflicting camera angles, or the odd texture issues that would pop in their heads from time to time. The whole gimmick of a two-perspective gameplay loop is fascinating, but the exploration of it feels shallow here outside of some key moments. For better and for worse, I think you're either going to love or hate this game, and I find myself leaning a bit toward the latter. Thank you so much for checking out this review. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, then make sure to show your support by giving a like and subscribe. I also have a Discord server which is linked in the description, a community filled with a bunch of people that watch my videos, all of us just playing games and talking, so feel free to join if you haven't already. Thank you all very much for watching, I love you all very much, and I'll see you all in the next video.